Hi, in this video I want to talk to you about the option to purchase form. Now this is different from a regular purchase agreement because this form will just give you the option to buy a piece of property. Now why would you use a form like this? Well, I'm going to give you an example of how I use this form and why it works well for me. So if I go out to see a piece of property and the owner wants too much for the house, or I think there's something with the, something about the house that investors aren't going to like. It's on a busy road. It's laid out strangely. It's near railroad tracks, whatever. I'll put this property on a option to purchase versus a regular purchase agreement. And what I'll typically say to the owner is, you know what? This property doesn't really match match my buying criteria. It's not something that I would normally buy, but I do work with a lot of other investors. And if you don't mind, I'd like to, share the property with them. And then if one of them are interested in it and maybe are going to go in with me on the transaction, at that time I'll come back and sign a purchase agreement with you. But this form just locks in a price, and it doesn't really bind or tie the seller into anything, and it doesn't tie you into anything, which is nice because if you were just to put it on a standard purchase agreement and then not be able to find a in buyer for it, then you would have to go back and try to get yourself out of the agreement, or try to get them to lower the price. With this form, you're just saying, hey, let's agree to a price. I'll try to find somebody, that'll buy it or go in with me on it. And at that point, I'll come back and I'll sign a purchase agreement with you. So surprisingly, a lot of people are open to this, that they don't mind this, and it works well. And it works well to get to a good price on the property as well, because really you're saying, I don't really like your property. So, what's the rock bottom you'd sell it for if I can find somebody to buy it? So let's run through the form really quick. It's an easy form to fill out. On top here, you just have the date, of course, and then your name and the property owner's name, the property address, and then the price that you agree on, and you put the price here. And it's kind of funny. I'll tell you a story real quick. I used this at I went to look at a property once, and the buyer gave me his price, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but let's say it was, $24,000 for me to buy the property. So, after we looked at the property, it needed a lot of work, and I didn't think it was worth the $24,000. So I said, you know what? It doesn't this doesn't meet, my criteria. And I went through the whole explanation again, but, I can send it to other investors I work with and see what they want. If they'd be interested in buying it. And he'd already given me the $24,000 price. But then when we went through this form and I said, okay, now, I'm going to go ahead and send this to, the other buyers that I work with. What's the rock bottom price that you would take on this property? And his reply was $19,000. Well, he'd already told me it was $24,000 and instantly dropped his price by $5,000. So why did that happen? Probably because, he was negotiating, or, he thought I was going to buy the property, whatever. But when he found out that I didn't really have a big interest and that, I had a lot of issues with the property, he was immediately willing to come down on this, on the price. So even if I would have gone back at a later date and bought that property, I could have got it at the 19 versus the 24. So it worked out well. But that's this kind of situation you would use as foreman when you're not ready to commit to that price. You think the price is too high. You think there's some other kind of problem with the property. Use the form. So anyway, okay, again, date, your name, their name, property address, the price that you agree on, the period of the length of the option. So it's 45 days here. And then the terms of the option, or the provisions. And its seller understands that you and to find another buyer for this property under this option agreement. The seller understands that you are acting as a principal in the transaction and you are not working as a licensed real estate broker. So you're saying that this is giving you an option to buy the property. You're never going to come back with another buyer and then try to just collect a commission on the deal. You're always going to be the one that's going to sign the purchase agreement on this deal. All right. Upon buyer's decision to exercise this option, both parties agree to move forward with necessary standard purchase agreement, and that's when you would go back with your real estate purchase agreement and sign that. When you're ready to move forward and exercise the option. All right. Seller may cancel this agreement at any time if he finds another buyer or tenant or decides not to sell. So again, it's easy to get people to agree to this because, if you negotiate a price that they're happy with, you're not locking them into anything. So if if somebody else comes and buys a property, they decide not to sell it or they get a tenant, that's fine. Then you cancel the agreement and they move on. But if you do decide to, exercise the option, you come back and you've already agreed on a price. So then the seller agrees to allow buyer to notify investors that the property is for sale. If the buyer does not acquire the end buyer to assign the deal to within 45 days of acceptance, this option agreement becomes null and void. So you've got 45 days to market the property or market the option of the property. Seller agrees to allow buyer access to the property via lockbox. This is a big deal because it's easier for you to find a buyer if you can get back into the property. So try, if at all possible, try not to budge on this because you want to be able to get back in the property. They might want to meet you there or whatever, which is fine as long as the buyer you're taking back there knows just to deal with you and not them. So, and then lastly, all parties agree that the property is being sold as is, unless otherwise noted. In the wholesale game, you're buying property as is, so that's understandable. And then that's it. And then you're going to let me see if I can move this up here because I'm not lined up property. And then you're just going to sign it, and that's it. That's the bottom of the form. So it's just one-page form. Option to purchase. It's a useful tool, and it's something that you should carry with you along with your purchase agreement. So if you're not ready to buy a house, you can go this route and try to get it under option. So I hope that explains it. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below, and I'll be glad to answer them. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.